And we're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Next Words of Wisdom. Today, we're talking about the real use of deep thinking. We'll talk about armchair meditation. We'll talk about chest moves. We'll talk about deep thoughts, deep thinking. In business, you have to work on the business. And sometimes you can't be in the business. As a CEO, my brother-in-law is the CEO and founder of an aerospace company. He originally was close friends with Elon Musk. He got a PhD in aerospace engineering, worked as the lead launchpad engineer for SpaceX, then worked with a couple other different aerospace companies. He was the chief infrastructure officer for Relativity Space, and then he went his own route and hired a bunch of people, got some insane funding, and now builds some sort of, I don't know, rocket engines or something. But anyways, he doesn't necessarily work in the business anymore. He works on the business. And on some level, you need to do that. You must see the forest through the trees. I don't know why it says that, Evan. There's a bunch of people here, not just you, but hopefully it'll load in for you. So you must have a chess-like mentality. You must get into a chair. That's step one. Step two, what I like to do is I like to do a little bit of reading. So I sit there, I read something that makes me think, some sort of stimulation. And this is kind of like chess-like daydreaming. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that TV show, The Queen's Gambit, but she's laying back on her bed and she's mapping out chess moves in the ceiling tiles. And that's kind of what people need to have more of. And so you want to, step three, think ahead in the most deep thinking mindset. You need to have balanced thinking because most people just are reactive, and for every single action there's an opposite and equal reaction in the universe. And so you need to take a step back occasionally and really think about what you're going to do before you do it, and take some really deep thinking into especially when you have big problems. Like, people make quick decisions on big problems. You should take an amount of time relative to how big the problem is. Like, unless it's something that needs an immediate solution, then you could just make a quick action and then figure out what to do after that. But you should be taking more time on bigger issues. When people make big decisions and they make them like that, and then they have small decisions and they think about them for days, that's very dysfunctional. The screen just did that right now. Interesting. I don't know. Hi, William. I don't know what's going on. I hope everything's good. All right, I'm going to be just on YouTube. Some people do it in a couch, a bed, a subway car, a vehicle, a chair, etc. Do some deep thinking. And one of my favorite things when it comes to deep thinking is turning the lights off. I would love to experience a sensory deprivation tank, because I think I could do some of the best deep thinking ever in that space. But turning the lights off, taking away all stimulation after engaging your mind heavily, and then really take a step back, be on the business, not in the business. And that works for all problems you might have. What it takes to be successful is how do you say it? Assiduity? It basically means you have to sit your butt in a chair. Like, you have to sit and think. Everybody needs that. Yeah, you'd fall asleep. You need to be a deep thinker, though. You can't just be reactive to everything. You're not going to get very far if you do that. You're not going to solve bigger problems than maybe the most basic ones you have as an individual. And it doesn't mean it needs to be like an insane amount of time, but you need to get really excited about something and then sit back and think. Back in prison, for sure. Yeah, you probably stared at a wall and thought about things back then. And that's one of the best aspects of prison, is that it gets people to think deeply. It's weird to think of the positive things, but that's one of them. I would suggest avoiding all stimulation when you do it. So, like, don't listen to music. In my opinion, listening to music, it's really distracting. And the world is distracting enough as it is. But I do think that nature is fantastic. But here's the heart laughing confetti. Thanks, Evan. I do think that nature is fantastic. So if you can sit in a very quiet place. When I was up in Oregon a few weeks ago, I walked out in the middle of the forest underneath Mount Hood, and I brought like a bedroll with me, like one of those inflatable bedrolls from REI, and I just laid it out in the middle of nowhere, like next to some fallen trees and some bramble brush area. And, the grass next to me was super tall, so I just laid down. Like, nobody would have ever found me. And I just sat there. And there's, blackberry bushes, just random stuff all around. And it's just it's not a very big space, but it was just a good place to do some deep thinking. Adventures with Emily, yeah. So I think nature is great. Think of the problem, ask yourselves questions, and then just solve it. Why am I not getting along with somebody? That's a question that I've asked myself so many times in nature. Anytime I have a bad relationship with a family member, or maybe I just don't work very well with somebody, if I ask myself why a few times, if I sit, honestly, it can help you get through some of the emotional difficulty of working with another person, because social interactions are the hardest to balance, like social relationships. And so if there's somebody I really care about and I'm like, I can't figure this out, like I can't figure out how to work together, this is the hardest thing in my life to balance. Like I can absolutely balance my health, my finances, like my personal happiness, but the social stuff is so hard. Some people, unlike you, for no reason, some people are just not wired the same way as you. Some people think differently, they rationalize differently. If people are highly emotional and you're highly rational, or vice versa. If people just come from a different culture, like there's countless reasons. And for me, one of the biggest, hardest things for me when I'm working with somebody is if they're overtly sensitive. Hypersensitive people are really tough for me to get along with. And that's men and women. So when somebody thinks that something I say or do is like hurting them or something, it's like, man, like I did nothing. Like this really sucks. And if it's somebody I absolutely have to get along for work relationships or business wise or family, like this is somebody I can't just cut out of my life like a cancer. It becomes a little daunting. Sorry for the tangent, but you do need to think deeper and ask yourself questions. And when you do the deep thinking, then I can ask myself, well, maybe I did something wrong. Or maybe it was somebody else or multiple events. And there could have just been a slow change over time. So it keep going deeper and deeper. And that's what I like to do. And it really helps with, if you have like some sort of emotional instability with something, you become more rational and you are able to cope with the difficult problem over time. And by doing this more frequently. As everything starts branching out, and maybe you're 20 levels deep, you'll start coming up with solutions. Now you are not in the situation. You have a bird's eye view. So make sure you go multiple layers deep. Ask yourself why multiple times. You have to have balanced thinking at the end of the day. And sitting is not a natural state for humans. All research says that sitting is bad for you, like sitting in a chair. So like sometimes I'll lay back because that's more natural. I'll lay on my side. I'll lay down, like literally on the ground, become grounded. I really like being grounded. So make sure you ask yourself why. Make sure you're really comfortable. There's very little stimulation. Follow the rabbit trail of your mind to cover all possible scenarios. And if you believe in God, I would highly suggest looking for a very strong and theologically sound biblical perspective on the problem, and then also having a conversation with God. I would suggest those two things intertwined. Make sure you add in outside knowledge. Read a book. So this is where the Bible should come in if you believe in God. If you don't believe in God, make sure you come up with something that is your moral compass. Everybody, I believe, should have a moral compass that is outside of their own consciousness. Something that says that this is the way life is supposed to be. You have guidelines. Guidelines are really crucial for life and to be successful as a human being. So make sure you understand your opinions and where they're founded from and why you have the moral basis that you do. And incorporate things from books, people that have lived incredible lifetimes, people that believe the same things you do, and cover all possible scenarios. So sit down, lay down, and think. So my questions for today are what is the number one reason, if you've never done this before, what is the number one reason you've never done this before? Is it because of distractions? Are you just not a deep thinker? There are some people that do not think deeply. They just don't. Like maybe that's you, William, but like you said you did it before in jail, so I know it's possible. And you have to limit distractions in order to do it. And sometimes distractions can be substances, right? Things that dilute you, substitutionary fulfillment. So you have to limit those things as well. Another question would be, where are you going to do this? When are you going to do this? Where are you going to do this? Why have you not done it if you haven't done it before? And what is the one problem you have in relation to your health, your wealth, your love, and your happiness that you should confront today? Confront right now. I love how interactive the chat is today. It's amazing. This is awesome. Distraction, anxiety attacks. My room before falling asleep. I also think that people should use a different place than their like regular sleeping place. Like you absolutely can, but if you can find an area that is outside of your zone where you spend a lot of your actual like working, like you do things in that space. So why don't you step away from the place where you do things? Radical acceptance. Reading is an exercise for the brain. Yeah, like I said, do a lot of deep reading, a lot of reading to get your mind going, and then put the book away, put all distractions away. So it's kind of like a contrast thing. All right. Well, those are the words of wisdom for today. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about the 7 habits of highly unsuccessful people and the type of people that are sloth. It's about like kind of about inverting things. I always like to say, like, if you want to be successful, ask yourself, what would I be able, like, what do you do to not be successful? So that'll be what we're talking about tomorrow. We're going to flip the question on its head and ask the opposite questions. And 7 habits of highly unsuccessful people. So I'll talk to you guys tomorrow morning, Friday. Super excited about it. Not doing push-ups. We can definitely be doing push-ups. That would make us more successful. Not doing push-ups would make us less successful. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. All right, bye.